Hello, my name is Aaliyah Thomas, and I did my final project on the concept of race and racial discrimination. When I researched the definition of race, I found that race refers to a person's physical characteristics such as bone structures, or skin, hair, or eye color. An example would be brown, white, or black skin from all various parts of the world. When I researched the definition of racial discrimination, I found that it involves treating someone unfavorably because he or she is of a certain race or because of a personal characteristic associated with race, such as hair texture, skin color, or certain features. The reason why this concept interested me is because I am considered a Black woman in American society, which comes with a lot of setbacks. One being segregation that was present during the 1950s and 60s, which affects people today, and I also was interested in the project because of police brutality that's also present in American society today. Some examples I found of police brutality, like specific names, were Eric Harris, Tamir Rice, Akai Gurley, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin, and Sandra Bland. The reason why this concept of racial discrimination is significant in American society is because it's present in the United States. Due to the Trump election, 56% of Americans have thought that Trump made race relations worse. Only 15% of Americans say Trump has made progress towards improving race relations. 13% say he has tried but failed with progress, and 14% said he hasn't even addressed the issue at all. There has also been an increase in racial murders, the most popular one being Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed in Georgia by two white men while he was jogging. The reason I found this significant was because when scrolling through my Instagram and Twitter feed, that's all I've really been reading about. And a lot of celebrities have also reposted Ahmaud Arbery's death because they consider it a setback when it comes to improving race relations. A personal connection that I wanted to make to this concept would be that I was one of the only African Americans in my class when I moved up to the school Upper Moreland, which is in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, when I was in first grade. A lot of the girls would point out my racial features, which would be my hair color, the fact that I have curly hair, my skin color, skin complexion. And a lot of times I would always start to wear sweatshirts to hide the fact that I was African American. But as I got older, I realized that being African American in society is definitely it's definitely changed the way that I view things now that I'm older, and I see that there's a lot of racism in America today. Not to say that I'm ashamed to be African American, but it took a while for me to really accept it because of how people treat and look at African Americans. They look at us like, we're dumb, and they set a lot of stereotypes. But I think once you get past and accept the fact that there's nothing I could do to change it, I started to really embrace being African American and embrace my differences that people see as, flaws. One of the things that I found is that a lot of Black women today have lost their confidence, similar to how I felt when I was younger. A lot of African American women today wear weaves, they buy straighteners and blow dryers, and this is really related to hair because, as an African American, a true African American, not mixed with anything, you tend to have, curlier or considered nappier hair. So a lot of girls wear weaves and, they straighten their hair to look like Caucasian women. And I thought that this was important today because I think a lot of African American women need to start embracing their natural hair in particular and stop, putting weaves and trying to fix everything, because there's something you can do to really change it. Because when you're in your true form, you accept everything and you appreciate a lot of your differences. From a media aspect, people are saying now that a lot of white girls are trying to be, Black. And one specific example I found was, her name is Bad Baby. She became popular because of the Dr. Phil show, and she was the girl that said, "Catch me outside, how about that?" But I chose her because a lot of people say that Bad Baby tries to talk Black. She puts weave in her hair, which is normally an African American thing for women. She started to make her skin tone darker with using a lot of makeup or tanners, and people say that due to all this she's trying to be Black, and she would behave ghetto, and people relate to word ghetto to African American people from urban societies. So I chose this in particular because I feel as though I think a lot of white people today have definitely tried to either talk with an accent or talk, ghetto, as I said, which I think is a stereotype that I think that African Americans have developed over the years living in different urban societies. But I also think that, and part of me sees where she's coming from when she's saying, like, these are all stereotypes that you guys are setting against me because you think that since I talk ghetto and I wear weave that I'm trying to be black, instead of just, wanting to do something different with their hair, or some white girls think they're too white. So I think it's definitely the way that you see it. Part of me agrees with the black society and saying, like, don't try to be what you are, but there's some white people who grew up in urban areas who just develop those features from being in their environment. So I think that where you come from is definitely related to how people see race and what stereotypes you put against other people. Another topic I want to touch on when it comes to media is TikTok. A lot of older generations don't really download TikTok, and one thing I've seen is that a lot of racial videos are starting to come up on social media websites, and racial slurs are being used by people who are on TikTok. One example would be these two kids. They made a TikTok post saying that, how to make a black person, and say, like, running from the cops and being violent and talking ghetto. I think that a lot of stereotypes are coming up more recently. I don't want to say because Trump is in presidency, because I've always, seen people using racial slurs, but I think it's definitely increased since he's become president because he's very vocal with his views on African Americans. But a lot of these students have gotten expelled, which I think is a decent way to handle the issue. And a lot of people are upset with the TikTok stars who may use the N-word or things of that sort. And touching on the use of the N-word, I think that's also become a concept of, racial discrimination and just race relations in society today, because I think the N-word is used very loosely. So the history of the N-word is a slur directed at Black or African Americans that was used in the 20th century, mainly in the United States, and anyone outside of the African American race who used the N-word was seen as racist. And today, the N-word is used a lot in music and movies, TV shows, mainly by African Americans. I can't say I've really seen a lot of white people use the N-word in TV shows besides those movies about, slavery and things of that sort. But it's also seen as an insult when it's used by non-Blacks. I think that this is very controversial. I think that no white person should use the N-word, or no non-Black should use the N-word by any means, because it definitely is a racial slur. But I think that there have been given too many passes when the African American race uses the N-word, because at the end of the day, no matter who uses it, the word is still derogatory. So I think from that aspect, that's definitely controversial. And the last topic I wanted to touch on was the racial discrimination seen in the media. One main case was the Colin Kaepernick situation. Colin Kaepernick is an NFL player. He also ignited controversy over race activism and free expression after protesting police brutality and the recent police shootings that have gone on in American society. The way Colin Kaepernick protested was taking a knee at one of the nationally programmed NFL games, and this happened in 2016. So President Trump was very angry about the situation because he feels as though, it was disrespectful to the Star Spangled Banner, it was disrespectful to the flag, and it was disrespectful to American society because he took a knee during the Star Spangled Banner. And other players, began to take a knee at the Star Spangled Banner because it was a way of them saying that these police brutality shootings are unacceptable and there should be something done, about it by the government or by people in higher power. Because a lot of celebrities, like I said, they take to the media and they speak freely about these different police brutality shootings. So the fans started to boycott the NFL. I can say that my father did. He boycotted the NFL and didn't watch any of the games, with the belief that Colin Kaepernick failed to land the job for the next season. Many people think that this was done on purpose because the people in charge of the NFL and who are in higher power at the NFL, they thought that him taking a knee was disrespectful, and a lot of fans believed that he was blacklisted for it. So with all those examples being said, I think the concept of race is definitely something that's going to take a long time to really come to terms with. I think, it may never be something that's accepted, and I think that the phrase that all men are created equal, it's false. I think that, all people are not created equally. Like I said, there's a black race and a white race. Not that I see things in black and white, but I think that being African American in society is definitely, you're born with a target on your back. A lot of things that blacks may be put in jail for years for, white men may not, and that's just the way that it is in society. It's not fair. But I think that the more that people do to stand up against racism and racial discrimination, I think that it's, African Americans taking one step towards freedom every time that we do it, and taking a step towards being treated equally in society. It'll never be perfect, but I think the more that people do their research on the history of slavery and segregation and racial discrimination, the more knowledgeable you are about the topic, the better you'll be able to understand and see why blacks don't have it easy. We have to work twice as hard for everything that we earn, and that's just the way the world works. So thank you again. My name was Aaliyah Thomas, and the topic I chose for my project was race, the concept of race and racial discrimination in society. Thank you.